What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the MCSC network. I'm your host, Finn, and this is the unnamed, soon-to-be named, sports podcast for the Mikasa Sukasa network. All right, so let's get this started. This is going to be episode 2. Episode 1 should be uploaded at some point, but episode 2, where we're going to kind of hop into what's going on with free agency, what's been going on with the draft, the combine, the whole nine. We're going to see where that goes and get everybody up to date. And then we're going to talk about opinions on some of these moves. And that'll be what episode 2 is about. So, a little bit about myself if you haven't checked out the first episode. My name is Finn. I started my own blog back in 2015. Did pretty good there. Got a couple views. And then I went ahead and submitted a resume and then started writing for the Sideline Report, and I covered the Detroit Lions for a year and a half under Jeff Risden and some other nice folks out there at Sideline Report, and then decided to step away from that. I was in the military at the time. I was in the Navy, so got a little busy, but now I'm back. I got the beard out of the Navy, away from Hawaii, so I'm back on the East Coast time zone, so I can be up to date on all the new free agency and NFL news. We're going to hop back into it. Maybe you guys can listen to my opinions and let me know how wrong I am. Sometimes it's just like that, you know. So first off, I want to make sure that this bad boy is still recording. It is. Awesome. All right, so let's talk about one of the biggest free agency moves so far, Kirk Cousins, and why it's so important. So I sat and I thought about it for a while. And I can't remember the last time a proven franchise quarterback has hit the free market without any injury concerns. And that goes back to 2012 when we're talking about Peyton Manning. And Peyton Manning was coming off of that big neck surgery. Nobody knew if he was even going to play football again. So much that the Colts went ahead and just drafted Andrew Luck and let Peyton walk into free agency. And then way back in 2006, we saw Drew Brees. He hurt his shoulder. Chargers didn't have a lot of faith in that shoulder after that. And then they went and grabbed Eli Manning in the draft, but had to trade for Phillip Rivers because Eli Manning refused to play for the Chargers. Little football history for you. So Rivers became the franchise guy there out of NC State for San Diego. Now LA, but then it was San Diego. And then Drew Brees. He was actually going to go to Miami. People had him going to Miami, but Miami wasn't sure about his shoulder, and they decided that they would want to go for the proven talent, Dante Culpepper, and that turned out very well. Not well at all. And then Drew Brees goes to the Saints, win a Super Bowl, becomes top 4 quarterbacks, possibly all time, definitely top in yardage, so that's history. All right, there's your NFL history segment. So the last time, a quarterback hitting the market like that is not common, right? Now, Kirk's 29 years old. He's right in his prime. He's done very well in Washington considering the fact that Jordan Reed can't stay healthy. His best receiver has been Jamison Crowder. Terrell Pryor forgot how to catch the football after he learned how to catch the football. And really, there's just... he's doing a whole lot of, something with nothing. At the end of 2015, he had 17 touchdowns to 2 interceptions in 8 games. He's a good football player. He's a real good football player, and to hit the open market like that is so mind-boggling. So the big thing is he ended up signing to Minnesota on a 3-year, $84 million contract. Now, that's not the most expensive contract. Jimmy G just signed the most expensive contract in NFL history. But what makes this contract special is the whole guaranteed money concept. And what, for you guys that don't know, MLB, the NBA, they have guaranteed money, guaranteed contracts. If I sign a 3-year, $84 million contract and I go break my ankle in the second play of the season, I made $84 million. And it's like that in a lot of places. How many places do you know that you can go to work, get hurt doing the work that somebody asked you to do, and then, not be compensated for it? You need to be compensated for the work that you do. So this turn towards guaranteed money is going to result in smaller contracts, right? You see guys like Andrew Luck, Matt Stafford, Jimmy G, they have $100 million plus, $120 million plus contracts. But now what we see is guys getting less money, $84 million, over 3 years, whereas those guys are over 5 years. So maybe it all works out on a per-year basis. But the contract is smaller, and there's less money that you can make based off incentive, but it's all guaranteed. So give a little, get a lot kind of deal, right? Sure, you know what the max you can make is, but at least you know that's also the minimum that you can make, and you can worry about playing football, not worry about rushing injuries so you can make more money. You know what I'm saying? Plan on injury. You got it. Take your time. Get back. And that's how it should be. That's what the culture should be like. Another key thing about this contract, and something that a lot of guys are doing, you look at Isaiah Crowell. He signed a 3-year deal. Carlos Hyde, 3-year deal. Sammy Watkins, 3-year deal. Why are all these guys signing 3-year deals? It's not coincidence. And the thing is, in 3 years, the new CBA is going to be negotiated. And if I had to explain the CBA to a 5-year-old, pretty much there's an agreement between the NFL Players Association and the NFL. And there's a lot of rules that add guidelines, and every so-and-so it gets renegotiated. Up to date based off of players' concern, NFL's concern. The game's constantly changing, so should the negotiation talks. So 3 years, the new CBA is going to be negotiated, so all these players are trying to double dip into that new CBA, assuming that it's going to be in favor of the players, especially if this guaranteed contract thing becomes big. Players are going to want to renegotiate, maybe take a little bit less money possible in their contract, like we said before, but now they're going to end up with guaranteed money, which is really important for positions like running back and wide receivers that are exposing themselves to big hits all the time versus quarterbacks, which is it's easy to give a quarterback guaranteed money because, A, he's so important to the team. 2, he's less likely to get injured compared to a running back, a wide receiver, a tight end, an offensive lineman. You know what to do. So CBA does a lot of other things. For example, like during the offseason, right, the coaches and the players and coaches can't talk football during the offseason. And not only can they not talk football during the offseason, a player can't waive that right to do so. And you would think, well, wait a minute. If Tom Brady wants to talk to Bill Belichick and text him about football, about film that they saw, an idea he had, why can't he do it? Why can't he waive his right? He should be able to speak about whatever he wants to with whoever he wants to. But the issue is, and the reason why it's like that is, if Tom Brady waives his right and other people don't, those people, whether they like it or not, are going to be seen as unloyal to the game kind of deal, or they don't want it as much. And it's going to quickly become mandatory to do so. And you know, if you've ever played a sport, you know, voluntary practices, voluntary workouts, voluntary tryouts are not voluntary. They're mandatory. And if you're not showing up, people notice. You know what I'm saying? So there's a real thin line that you walk between it being voluntary or mandatory. So if people can voluntarily waive that right, it's going to turn into mandatory waiving that right, or that's going to be a key thing between two players. If you're between two players that you don't know which one you want to keep on the team, and one waived his right and talked football all season and showed up to these off-season meetings versus the other guy, you know what I'm saying? So now there is no off-season for players, and they don't have a right to just be away from football. So that's something that the CBA negotiated. Another thing is if you look at guys like Matt Stafford and older, all these draft picks, there wasn't a limit on what they could be signed to contract-wise. So if you look at Matt Stafford's contract, matter of fact, while we're here, let me go ahead and pull it up. So we'll take Matt Stafford's contract. Matt Stafford, rookie, type in one in. And we'll compare it to a guy who was drafted afterwards at 1-1, I believe Andrew Luck. So we'll go with Andrew Luck. So Matt Stafford, his rookie contract was a 6-year deal for $41.7 million, right? That's insane. 6 years, $41.7 million. Let's look at Andrew Luck. So when they renegotiated the deal, it was these draft picks now have a set limit based on where they were drafted. There's probably more. Don't short me too much as I look up. So let's look up Andrew Luck. So remember, 6-year, $41.7 million, and then 4-year, $22.1 million. So for Andrew Luck, the number 1 pick. So 4-year, $22 million versus 6-year, $41.7 million. So I don't want to do the math, but pretty much 2 extra years, and he's getting double the amount, despite having 2 more years. So that allows teams to kind of bring on rookies without killing their cap space, right? Because it's a risk you got to take, and you don't want to be. I mean, they're rookies, and I don't know how it benefits both sides to the T, but it's pretty obvious that it stops these rookies from being paid a whole bunch of money, and it saves teams cap space, and then they can kind of double dip. I mean, Andrew Luck just signed a 6-year, $140 million contract with 80-something guaranteed. So he got the same kind of deal with, as Kirk Cousins, 80-something guaranteed, but the whole contract being guaranteed is the big thing. So that's something else the CBA did, and that's just whether it be player safety, whether it be contract negotiation, whether it be things that players can or can't do, things like touchdown celebrations, the whole nine, right? That's what the CBA is, and the NFL Players Association is responsible for. So yeah, that's Kirk Cousins in a nutshell. As for can he fit in Minnesota, I personally like Kirk Cousins. I think he has got all the arm talent he needs to be successful. I think he's extremely smart. I loved his tape. He shredded the Vikings. Even though they lost against the Vikings, he shredded the Vikings, and it really came down to 1 or 2. One was an overthrow that got caught, but would have been a touchdown if it was on target. And then another one, he threw a post to Josh Doxson. It was wide open. So one of the things, I guess I'll kind of go into detail about this is you'll hear a football phrase. It'll be 1 high or 2 high. And what they're talking about is the safeties. 2 high safeties means there's 2 deep safeties, normally on the outside of the hash marks. And depending on the coverage, it could be cover 2 or cover 4. But the whole concept of 2 high is that they're splitting the deep part of the field in half. Each got half and half. And that just means there's less room to throw. There's a lot of coverages that run off of that, whether it's man or zone coverage, whether it's quarters or cover 4, where the cornerbacks on each side and the safeties will all drop back and they cut it into fours. And that's really denying the deep ball as well as denying the deep seams. Really just more bodies can cover more field, right? And that's where you find value in safeties that can cover a whole bunch of field by themselves. Guys like Earl Thomas, guys like Harrison Smith. When I say girls, guys like Earl Thomas, guys like Harrison Smith, guys that you could throw back there in a 1 high look, 1 safety high, but still cover almost as much ground. That's when we're talking about game-breaking free safeties that can cover the whole field and play center field. Guys that they're expecting Minkah Fitzpatrick out of the draft to be like Malik Hooker for the Colts. So that's a 1 high look, and they can cover a whole bunch, and there's a lot of value to that. But you're also leaving yourself open, because if they get caught watching the quarterback's eyes too much, they can be led and drifted. And there's situations like Earl Thomas who will drift to one side of the quarterback's eyes. He snaps his head back right, throws a deep pass, and he still makes it to the play, right? That's just how much range Earl Thomas has. But anyways, I say all that to say this. One of the situations you see with 1 high is obviously verticals on both sides, because if they go vertical and both of the guys win, he can only pick one, because it's just you can't guard both sides. So you'll have Kirk snap the football, he'll hold his eyes left. Earl Thomas or Harrison Smith, actually for the sake because he was playing the Vikings defense, will have Harrison Smith or Sendejo. But anyways, holding his eyes left to that left receiver going on the streak. He's going to drift, watching the eyes, and then you can snap your head right, and then you have a one-on-one, and hopefully your guy won and get the ball deep. That's one of the things that cover having that 1 high look leaves you susceptible to. And if you go back and you watch the Eagles against the Vikings, you'll see that happen a lot. Nick Foles and that Eagles offense literally just kept throwing at Torrey Smith. That's who it was. And they were just sending him, second throw of the game, just send him deep. And they didn't catch it. I think there was one where he hit Harrison, or it hit Torrey Smith. I keep forgetting his name. Hit Torrey Smith right in the chest, but Trey Waynes made a play on it. The second one, he actually beat Trey Waynes bad, instantly off the snap. But the counter for the Vikings that time, because they knew it was coming, they brought pressure, and the pressure got to Kirk Cousins before he could throw the football. and ended up smacking it out incomplete, but it still got beat. And then the last time is when they ran the flea flicker. And the flea flicker isn't, I mean, it wasn't really an eye play like the other ones where Kirk is looking one way to keep the safety at bay. But the whole point was he had finally beat him, and the safety was so paying attention to sliding up to play the run that the throw over top was open. They finally scored. So that's something that one high leads is acceptable too. Another example of that would be, once again, ET3 in Seattle against the Texans, because you have a guy like Will Fuller who's just too fast for a guy like ET3 to hang with. So really beating them deep. Another thing you can do is the concept of levels. So what you do is you have, say I'll have a slot receiver on the right side, and I'll have him run a dig. And a dig or an in route is about 10, based on how fast really you could run, it'd be anywhere from 8 to 14 yards, and you're cutting at a 90-degree angle. So you're shooting vertical for 8 to 15 yards, and then in at a 90-degree angle towards the inside of the field, running across. That's a dig route. So you'll do that, and you're running right in front of that safety. And then on the other side, you have a post route, which is going about 10 to 15 yards, and then cutting at a 45-degree angle towards the middle of the field. So essentially what you have is this guy coming across short right in front of that safety, and then you have a guy going deeper and cutting behind that safety. So basically there's this two window, high, low, high, low, high, low, and you basically have that safety coming up. So then you would ask, okay, well, why don't the linebackers just take the dig route and the safety play the deep route? And that's ideal. Then what you will have is a guy on this side, maybe another slot, maybe a tight end, run a drag, which is like 2 yards across the field. So you have like 2 to 5 yards coming from left to right, then a dig coming from right to left, and then the post going from left to right over top. So you basically have 1, 2, 3 layers, and you basically read, okay, do I have a quick throw? Did they step up on my drag? Do I have the dig route? Okay, well, how's my eye level? Okay, I look up. Where's that safety? Is the safety coming up to play my dig route, or is he backing up? And that's something you can do, manipulate that one high, because normally in one high look, the cornerbacks are playing the sideline. Sorry if you can hear my little one. She's screaming and she wants attention. So that's something that they ended up doing, and Kirk does extremely well, is he's able to recognize very quickly what level that safety is playing and getting the ball there. And it was just like one small overthrow to Josh Doxson away from a touchdown. It was so crazy. But Kirk is real smart. He's played in some really good offenses. He's played in the Kyle Shanahan offense, which we saw go down to Atlanta, take them to a Super Bowl. We saw them go to the Niners. They're having success with Jimmy Garoppolo. He played in Sean McVay's offense, and we saw Sean McVay go over to L.A. and completely turn around that entire scheme in L.A. from like a 4-win team last year to NFC West champions on their way through a playoff run, if not for the Falcons. But Kirk is real smart. He's been in on teams with really smart coordinators, and I think he can go to a place like Minnesota with guys like Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen and Kyle Rudolph, experienced pass catchers, great route runners, and he can really get the most of that. I mean, he would lit it up with Jamison Crowder, so it would be no surprise for him to turn around and do the same exact thing in Minnesota. So I think it's a fit. Do I think the expectation is to be Super Bowl or bust in 2018 season? No. And people are going to say, oh, we paid him fully guaranteed. Look, fully guaranteed $84 million contract. Andrew Luck just signed a 6-year $80 million or $120 million contract, like $80 million guaranteed. That $80 million guaranteed is within those first 3 years, and Andrew Luck hasn't played like a down since he signed the contract. Okay, that's wasted money when we're talking about wasted money. When you got a guy like Kirk, it's going to take a bit. This is the NFL. There's too many moving parts. Now, Minnesota didn't make too many changes. Jerick McKinnon left, but they're getting Dalvin Cook back off of the ACL injury. I don't know what the status of Latavius Murray is, but for the most part, that offense is intact. I would like to maybe see them address it in the draft. Who knows? Don't really know how many picks they're working with. But really, I mean, this was a good team. That defense was, I mean, it's got all pro talent everywhere, from Everson Griffin and Danielle Hunter to Alex Barr and Eric Kendricks to Xavier Rhodes to Harrison Smith. And even Trey Waynes has played well. So very talented team. So I would expect they need to win the division. But even against Aaron Rodgers and Matt Stafford, it's not going to come easy. I think the goal should be to win a division, at least get to the playoffs, maybe get a playoff win, and then within a second year or third year, that's when we should be seeing a Super Bowl. Because right now the NFC is really, really competitive, and this is like the second or third year for these offenses getting worked in. I would have liked to see the McVay offense in LA work with Sammy Watkins after having a whole camp, because if you don't remember, they traded for Sammy Watkins during the preseason. So they didn't really get a whole offseason to implement their offense around a guy like Sammy Watkins, who's very talented in all facets of the game. So, well, when he's healthy. So, NFC's competitive. A lot of good teams. Philly is getting Carson Wentz back, who was the MVP last year as far as I'm concerned. The Saints are only getting better. I mean, their rookie class killed it. Outside of a blown play, they won that game as far as I'm concerned. So there's a lot of things going on in the NFC, a lot of changes, a lot of adjustments. So for Kirk to go there and be expected to win a Super Bowl just because they got to the NFC Championship last year, I don't think that's realistic. I don't think that's smart to put on them, because when you start putting this 1 year expectation on teams, that's when you start getting in situations like Cleveland where, oh, it's 1 year or bust and we need to change something up. It's like, no, like, he's a proven entity. Let's just ride it out and figure out what works. I think Kirk is going to do fine. I think he's played extremely well given the circumstances that he's been in. He's put up great numbers. He's got all the arm talent. He makes all the throws. The film speaks for itself. So let's talk about the draft for a little bit. Well, we got some time left. I'm going to try and keep this one short. 30 minutes is a good time for any kind of podcast. So we're going to try and keep this one 30 minutes. If we can get a good view base, we can pop that up to 45, even an hour. But really the big thing is I don't want to be talking too much about what other people are talking about. That's really what it comes down to. You don't need to hear the same thing here at the Mikasa Sukasa network that you're hearing on ESPN. You can go listen to those guys. All right, here we're going to get real information. We're going to get real analysis, hopefully real analysis. I'm kind of guessing at this point. I do have hot takes. We'll take hot takes. Don't worry about that. We'll do some Q&A, some mailbag, stuff like that. But anyways, moving on. So let's talk about this draft. So the New York Jets traded up in the third. The Colts moved back to 6 and gained like 3 second-rounders, 2 this year, 1 next year. And that tells me that all 3 top teams, Cleveland, the Giants, and the Jets, are going to be going quarterback. Which order? I don't know. I personally think it's going to be Darnold. Darnold should go first because he's the youngest out of the group. He's got great mobility. And not mobility like Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, but just mobility and being able to improvise. He moves well with his eyes down the field. He's got a good arm. There's like thoughts about throwing motion, but I mean, throwing motion is kind of picky in my opinion. And, we hear all the time, they need to work on their throwing motion. Unless it's bad like Tebow, I don't really see an issue, even if it's a little bit long. I mean, Carson Wentz was said to have a long throwing motion that he needed to work at, and he worked at it a little bit, but that's not anything to be like alarmed about. Darnold's 22 years old. I think he's 22 years old. He might be younger. He might be older. I don't know. But the whole point is they got Tyrod Taylor. There's not an immediate need to start this guy, and you're not wasting years because he's coming out at like 24, 25 years old. So you're going to be fine by sitting Darnold for a little bit. Then I think the Giants are going to go Josh Rosen. I think they're going to go Josh Rosen because he's technically, and what I mean by technically is like from a footwork perspective, from an arm talent perspective, from a mechanics perspective when it comes to throwing motion, footwork, eyes, the whole 9. I think he is the most pro-ready. Is he going to be the best out of the group? I don't know. But I think right now he's the most pro-ready. And the Giants are the closest team between the Cleveland Browns, the Jets, to going to the playoffs. And I think they're a team that has great talent on offense, and I don't need too much from my quarterback outside of consistency and then maybe a couple bailout throws in a season. So, I mean, you got Odell, you got Evan Ingram, you got Sterling Shepard. That's a lot of talent. If they can just acquire a running back in this draft, I mean, they grabbed Jonathan Stewart, but he's old. I'm not really expecting too much from Jonathan Stewart. We've been waiting for Paul Perkins to break out for too long. It's not going to happen. We need to go somebody else at running back, please. But Josh Rosen can come in. He can make throws. Doesn't have, you don't need him to do too much. Just be smart. Get the ball to the playmakers. I mean, Odell's one of the best in the game after the catch. And he's one of the only dudes in the NFL who's ready to just take a slant yard at any time. Evan Ingram is a game changer at tight end in terms of speed and mismatches against secondary opponents. And then Sterling Shepard is solid underneath as a slot. So securing another receiver spot, I don't know exactly what they got out there. I know they had Brandon Marshall last year, but he wasn't too impressive per se. Maybe age is getting to him. I don't know. He's one of the best blocking wide receivers of all time, so you got to give it to Brandon Marshall. But maybe it just was a bad year. Who knows? Third, I think you'll probably see either Baker Mayfield or you're going to see Josh Allen. And I personally think they need to go Josh Allen. And the reason why. So, one, they just signed 2 quarterbacks. They signed Josh McCown to a 1-year deal, and they signed Teddy Bridgewater. Now, if you listen at all to the Tomahawk podcast, which is the Cleveland Browns, Andrew Hawkins, and my bad, folks. My camera ended up overheating, so we're back. We were talking about quarterback play. So, we were on Josh Allen. So, anyways, Josh McCown signed to the Jets. We got Teddy Bridgewater that signed to the Jets. So, what does that mean? Well, what it means is Josh McCown, per the Tomahawk podcast, like I was saying, Andrew Hawkins and Joe Thomas from the Cleveland Browns, they do a podcast together. They played with Josh for a while he was in Cleveland, and they talked a lot about his ability to mentor and his ability to be a coach to these young guys, essentially as a backup quarterback or even a starter quarterback. So they say he's going to get into coaching. They say he's extremely smart. He's like 36. He's played for like 22 teams. I don't know how many teams. It's a lot. The whole point is there's a lot of experience, and he's more than willing to share that experience. So getting a guy like Josh Allen in there who has got a cannon and has Josh Allen, even on timing routes, he can be late to releasing the ball and then still be on time by the time the ball gets to the receiver. I mean, it's incredible. The ball whistles out of his hand. And it's not just the long ball. It's the out route too. It's the post. It's the slant. They can really get a lot of heat on that ball while keeping it down. So I guess situational accuracy is something we can work on for Allen, footwork, the whole nine, getting a little bit mechanically better and ready for NFL offenses, especially because he was playing at Wyoming, so it wasn't really the top school in terms of competition. But we see guys come out of the draft all the time from small schools and have the football knowledge and ability to play at the next level. So that's all on self-preparation, and that's going to be a key for Josh McCown, and I think that's the perfect fit for a guy like Allen because, one, I don't have an immediate rush for him to start. We're not win now. We need a quarterback right now. 2, they also signed Teddy Bridgewater to a 1-year prove-it deal. So you can come in and you could take Teddy and start Teddy and have Josh be the backup. Well, they can fight it out in camp, whatever. And they can mentor Josh Allen, who can just come in, learn the game, be calm, and be worthy of the pick, unlike Christian Hackenberg, who they picked him and he just didn't pan out at all. You let Hackenberg go try out for another team. Sorry, buddy. But that's going to be the situation for them. I think that's the best case. I don't think they need to go grab a guy like Baker Mayfield because Baker Mayfield is a guy who's ready to start and play now because he doesn't I think from an accuracy standpoint, he's probably the best out of the group. And I think that he doesn't really have too many issues with mechanics and stuff like that. I think he's going to be fine. I don't expect him to have a super high ceiling. He might surprise me. Who knows? But I think Baker's the best fit in Denver at the 5th pick. And if Denver ends up not going quarterback at all, I think we could see Buffalo maybe trade up and try and grab him. Buffalo might stay back at 12 and grab Lamar Jackson. But that's the whole 9. So that's where I think the 3 quarterbacks. I think we're going to see Darnold, Rosen, Allen. At 4, I think you're going to see either Chubb from NC State, the pass rusher, go to Cleveland. I don't think they grab Saquon Barkley because they just paid Carlos Hyde. But they could. Who knows? That would be an incredible running back group with Carlos Hyde, Duke Johnson, and Saquon Barkley. But I don't think that's a need for them. I think they can go running back at one of their early second-round picks. So as much as I want Barkley in Cleveland, it'll be fun to see. It's definitely a best bet for them to be somewhere else. Go Chubb, maybe Minka Fitzpatrick, and let him play free safety, and that can move Jabril Peppers up into strong safety into a more natural position, kind of knock out 2 birds with 1 stone there at that pick. So that would be solid. 5, I think like I said, if we can either see Baker go, and if we don't see Baker go, Denver would probably go Nelson, and that Nelson being the guard out of Notre Dame. One of the big issues, if they really believe Case Keenum can be their guy in Denver, is that they need protection, and that's clear out the best offensive lineman in the draft, especially since Orlando Brown forgot how to be an athlete. Whew. All right. That's the top 5. 6, we can probably see whoever of Chubb, Fitzpatrick, or Barkley doesn't get picked at 4. We'll probably go to Indianapolis at 6. Indy could possibly move further back and just pick up more picks. I know Buffalo needs a quarterback. They may try and trade up to 6, especially if Denver doesn't go quarterback. So there's a lot of stuff going on there. You could see Minka or Barkley drop as far as 7, 8, or 9 in the draft, especially at running back, because not a lot of teams are in a huge need of running back, and sometimes it's just going to be positional value over him being the clear-out best player in the draft. So that's something to watch out for, is some of these trade moves, especially as the smoke screens start to come up, and Denver kind of decides if they feel like Case Keenum can be their guy or not. I personally don't think he will be. I think he's good for a couple seasons, but I don't think that he was any better than Trevor Siemian. So there's my hot take. I don't think Case Keenum's better than Trevor Siemian. And Trevor's on his way in Minnesota right now off of a trade. So anyways, that's about 30 minutes so far. So if you like this podcast, you enjoyed the content, and you feel like there's something that I can include better, awesome. Tweet at me at Finn_MCSCS, that last S being sports. So Finn_Mikasa Sukasa Sports. You can find us on Facebook at the Mikasa Sukasa Network. Now, those who don't know, Mikasa Sukasa is a primary political network, but I'm not a political guy, I'm a sports guy. Man, and my mic overheated again. We're going to let this ride out. Thank you for listening. This has been Finn. Y'all be easy. See you next week.